accustomed as I am to public speaking, I find it absolutely impossible to talk without view graphs. So I'll now give my reply. First of all, I couldn't possibly do that rap song, but I'd like to read all the words. Well, you know, things are going to change. And I think this is a wise measure for all of you. In fact, I thought it was such a wise measure, I was trying to think of something that I could give you as a remembrance that would be useful in your everyday life, but it would also be a memory of this evening. So I'd like to pass around some little pins for you all. I think you'll find them valuable in most of your walks of life. They're I Love the Dean buttons. I can't think of anybody who can't find one of these useful here. Well, we came here from Bell Labs just about 5 years ago now. A heck of a lot has happened since then. And when I came to the university, of course, the university is tremendously different from Bell Labs. In fact, the idea of Bell Labs was quite different from the university. I think you'll agree this doesn't really apply to us, but it was a big change from industry. And I'd like to share with you tonight some things that have happened in the intervening 5 years. First of all, whenever we give a speech, as you always know, we have to put down a list of our accomplishments. So, let me put down a list of our accomplishments. I'd like to go through some of these with you one by one. First of all, most sincerely, I feel that in the last 5 years we've grown something out of nothing. When I came here, we had none of the robotics, none of the work that has gone on. And I think that having seen something grow from an original idea to the fruition that it has done, the number of students that we've graduated, I don't know the numbers, you know them as well as I do, 200 undergraduates, 40 graduates, I don't know what's come out of it. But it's really quite remarkable what's happened, and it's only been 5 years. And that really is something special, and that's something I'll never forget, the way that we grew something so fast and it had so much meaning. So I'd like to talk about some of the things that we've done for the first time. We tried to pioneer a lot of things in the centre, and some things that we did were really firsts. I think we were the first to have the video conference between Tokyo University and CRSM. We're using the photophone. And Professor Hirose has never been the same since, because he spent most of the time looking at the video picture in Tokyo of Sue's legs. And I don't think he's ever quite recovered from that. I think we also had the record for the oldest and the youngest, when we had Welcome organising the Robots 10 exhibit, where we built a robot. We took it to the robot show in Chicago. We had a lot of undergraduates working on the project and a couple of graduates, and Welcome was then celebrating his 73rd birthday. I think that was kind of special. I think that starting the companies that have grown out of the centre, you know, we're supposed to be engineers, and having seen innovation carried through to fruition is terrific. We had Greg first of all, and more recently we've had Yulin, who started their own company. That's pretty special. And there's so many of them, of these things that we've done for the first, the list goes on and on, but let me just finish with one that is sort of special, and that's our systems people. And the systems organisation was a pretty new concept for the university, and having seen our systems people grow from, most of them were our students, or they've come through straight out of school, to becoming this first-class organisation they really are, is really been terrific. Lots of lives have changed as a consequence of the centre. And again, this is by no means a complete list, but let me just share with you some of the things that I remember. I remember Yoshi and Kyo, who left their country to come here. And that's quite a big step. I remember Steve visiting Yaskawa, which was the first time that somebody from the US had gone to work for a Japanese company, to that Japanese company. I remember people like Larry Laker and Jeff Wilson, who were not straight-A students, to say the least. In fact, we had sometimes quite a hard time keeping them in school. But they turned out to be truly first-class designers. And they've both gone out and got super jobs. I don't know what Jeff has been earning. Yeah, he's still around. But, these guys were not the natural people that you would have expected to have excelled. And they really have. Matt, of course, who completed his PhD and has now gone back to University of Osaka to do his postdoc. Families have formed because of the centre. We've seen a lot of people changing and things happening. Remember all the marriages that we've had. Remember Steve and Ellen got married. I remember you both wearing Reeboks at your wedding. I remember Sue and Eula getting married. And I think it was the first wedding reception I've been to where they had sushi and cupcakes on the same table. Remember Daegang and Xuan Li, who got married in a very shy and quiet way. They just came in one day and said, "What are you doing this evening? Would you like to come to our wedding celebration in China Castle?" Remember Matt and Kathy's wedding, when Kathy had a beautiful handmade lace gown that she'd done. I remember Brad and Lena getting married and disappearing off to Tahiti for the summer. And more recently, I remember Partha and Geeta, and seeing Partha coming back from India, so proud of his beautiful new shy bride. Now we've had a lot of births. We've had Jing and Quing, and Brad and Lena, and Suzanne and Greg, and Yoshi and Kyo. In fact, Kyo's in for an encore. And of course, we've got Sue and Yulin, who are around for the first time. And actually, just last week, we've had a new engagement. I understand that Sean and Steve have just got engaged. So, congratulations to you. So, lots of things have changed as a consequence of what we've done. And of course, the list of the accomplishments in terms of facts can go on for a long time, but let me just mention a couple of things that I remember and that I'll take with me as memories cherished. I remember when I first came and Gerardo Evelyn and I went out to NSF to try and get our first contract, and we went to an all-night disco with Jim Mers, and we were dancing in Washington University. I remember that unfortunately, Yulin has now grown up. He no longer surfs, he windsurfs. I remember our Director's Day that the students, staff and faculty did for Gerardo Evelyn and I, where they pinned on us the Purple Hearts of Courage for having withstood NSF. I remember Scotty, always happy, bouncing down the corridors. I remember, of course, Steve Belinsky's impersonation of Russ Taylor, which he just did in the rap song. I didn't know you were going to do that. But gee, how can I possibly forget coming after our NSF review and finding our students and staff dressed up as the reviewers doing very unsavory impersonations. I remember all the rock and roll sushi cruises that we went on, where we danced rock and roll and ate sushi out in the bay. I remember Shirley, Suzanne and Sue up until 1 a.m. in the morning, inevitably whenever we had an NSF review, which seemed to happen very often, they'll be the ones who'll be there Xeroxing with us. I remember carrying a suitcase full of refried beans through Narita Airport for Steve Belinsky and Ellen, when they felt that they weren't getting any Mexican food when they were in Japan for a year. I remember the first ECE advisory board meeting that we had, where we brought in nose cards, and we even got Huttenbach to wear a nose card. I remember many Christmas parties at Lois's, especially the ones where Jing was dressed up as Santa. I remember Gerardo's 40th birthday when we went out dancing and he proved that he could outdance most of you. I remember travelling to China with Evelyn and discovering that everybody in China is a who. And in fact, not only that, but they're chronicled. And here's the chronicles of Doctor Who for Evelyn. It's a big family. I remember when the Chancellor first came, she took me down to Los Angeles for dinner and I locked her out of her car. I also broke in the car, but I locked her out of it. I remember one of our NSF reviewers, Howard Maraf, when we asked him what can we do to improve the centre, saying, to be perfectly honest, it's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, which was a heartwarming thing to say. I remember at Halloween when Lois came in dressed as Sister Sadistic. I remember Welcome with a lot of fondness of his wisdom and his impatience. He's a 73-year-old, very impatient man. I remember when we first hired our first staff, which was Shirley Guess, and we were not there the day that the interviews were taking place, so we videotaped an interview for her. I remember the zillions of cake and pie parties that we've had in the conference room. I remember George and Evelyn being in hysterics at 2 a.m. in the morning after NSF had made us rewrite yet another set of biographs for them. And so the list goes on. Some memories that I've shared with a lot of you have made a very special time since I've been here. And I certainly will not forget it. And I'd like to just sort of go on to my final two things. I lost my viewgraph. My final wish to you all, of course, is to live long and prosper. How could it be otherwise? And then I'd like to share my final words of wisdom. After 5 years of living in California, what more can we say? Be excellent to each other and party on dudes. And now finally, I'd like to try and make my disappearance, but I'd like to leave you with something sweet to remember things by. I have some things from the chocolate gallery for you. These are relevant to everybody from the CRSM. The only people who are not directly related to the CRSM or to engineering is Patricia and Gary. So seeing as I go horse riding with Patricia, I have some equimids. And now somebody else can come up and tap dance.